everyone, my name is Ojaswi and I'm a volunteer with Headstart. I'm so happy and to get Molly today on a month-long celebration that we have put together as part of Startup September. So for folks who are joining in for the first time, Startup September is a month-long celebration that we at Headstart do for entrepreneurship. And this is one segment that we host every day from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. We have someone from the product space who comes and talks about how founders should be looking about product, how they should be going out to their consumers, the learnings that they have over the past couple of years when they were also part of startups, like many of us. So in the next 29 days now, we started this yesterday. We will try to break all the myths across product, enabler, and fund and support you as much as we can. And as always, Headstart is as a part of paying it forward to the community. And today on the product segment, we have with us Molly from Microsoft. Molly, thank you so much for giving your time to us and speaking out to the community. Molly, like 20 plus years of experience in product management, worked across small scale startups, helped them grow from 0 to 1 and 1 to 100 as well. And now working with Microsoft and helping Microsoft launch products as well. Would love to hear a little bit about your journey at Microsoft and couple of avenues you were part of before Microsoft as well.
Sure thing. So did grad school in the US, came back to India, spent about 10, 11 years in engineering, and then accidentally got into product management. Actually, some of my writing on the web, I used to blog for like quite a long time. CEO of one of the startups that I worked with, saw a few of my blog posts and then cold called me. And I was like, I didn't know what product management was. I didn't know what any of these things was. And then I, after long conversations, decided to take the plunge and got into Go EP2, which is where pretty much I learned a lot of product management. So two things that I keep telling people, I learned product management from folks at Go EP2, where I first met Ojaswi for that matter. And a lot of my product management I learned from the community. So I went to a lot of events from Headstart, product folks, met people. That's pretty much how I learned product management. Spent like 7 years in travel-related startups of all kinds of sizes, and eventually running my own called Travenues, where we tried building a SaaS, building e-commerce for aviation. And then half the world of travel startups basically got impacted with COVID, and then so did we. We did an exit, came out, and then got into Microsoft. So at Microsoft, interestingly, for the first couple of years, I was doing nice, long, large, stable stuff. But more into the last 1 year or so, I've been working on 0 to 1 within Microsoft as well. Kind of lucky to have gotten that stint within, because it's not very every day when you can get a 0 to 1 product within a large enterprise company like Microsoft. So that's kind of like where I've got like 10 years engineering, 10 years product, a lot of intersection between the two.
Wow, so fascinating, Molly, and I was glad to have crossed path with you at IBO and the kind of stuff that you built over there. You talked about building 0 to 1 at a company like Microsoft. If you can share a little bit more about, of course, something which is available in public domain, about what you are building and how that journey is. And then I have a bunch of follow-up questions on this, because this was very, very fascinating when I first heard how 0 to 1 within Microsoft would look like.
So what we're trying to build is something in the hybrid workspace. So as everybody knows, one of the most fascinating problems that everybody is faced with is when a company is declared that they're going to be hybrid, not fully remote, not fully in office, but hybrid. How and when and where should I go to meet people? So should I come to office on Thursday so that Ojaswi would be there? Should I go to Go office while building 1 or building 2? I don't know where he's going to be sitting. Should I book a conference room and a workspace near where he's sitting? So this whole coordination thing is like a huge problem. A lot of companies are trying to solve it. We kind of feel like, as Microsoft, being a platform company in the productivity space, we got a lot of data from Exchange and a lot of people using us as well. Might be a good problem to go and solve. Right? That's the first problem, facet of the problem. The second facet of the problem, which I'm personally working on with my team here, is a huge community that has gotten impacted by hybrid, is the real estate and facilities folks. Um, if you think you're having a huge problem on deciding whether you want to go to work or not, imagine the facility manager of your office trying to figure out how many people will come to office that day, how many cabs should go out, how much food should be prepared, should the ACs be running on a floor which has 4 people sitting inside it. I mean, that problem is another exponential problem that we are trying to solve. Get them enough data and analytics and insights so that people can make more data-oriented decisions. Like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, this was not a problem. They knew the number of people coming in. They knew how much meals to cook. They knew how many cabs should go out. They knew the efficiency of the HVAC systems. Everything was deterministic. They have basically been thrown into a huge chaotic situation right now, which we're trying to solve. And these two problems are interconnected, and we're trying to see how quickly we can whip up a solution for the employees, trying to get them coordinated and see when they can get to work. And once that happens, can we bring in a little more data and coordination to the facilities folks as well, so that together chaos is going to remain, but it's probably be a little more of an organized chaos, if I can call it that. And we're seeing if we can be the enabler of that.
Wow. Like this is like so interesting. Like while there are so many aspiring founders out there trying to figure out what should my next idea should look like, what is the problem that I should solve, and who like before 2020 would have thought that even this could be a problem. And when companies like Microsoft thinks about these problems, I'm pretty sure there will be more and more people who will be able to benefit out of it. And when you talked about the facilities guy, I remember a recent conversation at my office, and they were like, I was like, there is so much of food. You are wasting the food. And they're like, we thought that so many people would come. And then it was more of a guesstimate than probably knowing actually a lot of things. A lot of times when I go to office, I'm like, I thought about meeting someone in person, and then I end up meeting the same person in the same city over a VC. So good luck on that, Molly. I'm pretty sure that is going to impact so many people out there. And when people will see Microsoft building solutions like this, I think the thought that has gone behind from your team in identifying the problem, I think that is one of the learnings that I'm taking back, that every time you should look out for problems out there and how you can build a solution. It could be a feature, it could be a full-fledged startup out there, or a 0 to 1 startup within an organization like Meta or Microsoft. Molly, the little bit changing gears, and I often get asked this thing, Ojasvi, you would be so blessed now that you don't have to deal with the struggles of startup. Like in IBO, I remember we used to talk about engineering bandwidth is not there, tester is not there, let's test it on our own. And every founder, every product manager, everyone in the startup world goes through this bandwidth problem. And when I moved to Meta, everyone was like, you are sorted. Like now you don't have to struggle with those things. But one, if you could touch base upon, you have so much of experience working with companies where you built them 0 to 1. And then now you're working with Microsoft. How do you compare both of them? Like how it was working with a startup versus working with Microsoft, and if there are any myths that you would want to burst up today?
Sure. So good question, actually. So couple of things, right? That bandwidth problem that you talked about, it is not that is not there in large companies as well. Like for instance, in the product that I'm with, we are pre-product market fit. Right, we're in very early stages. We're with private preview customers, and it's announced in last Ignite, so it's publicly known. Working with a handful of customers. Even companies like Microsoft or Google or Meta, for that matter, unless there is proven commercial viability, you will not get the number of resources that you will get, especially in the current climate, right? You got to go build it, prove it, make sure you got enough customers who are willing to pay enough money. Then maybe the bandwidth problem could potentially get solved. But until then, you're still in the same rat race, trying to get resources, beg, borrow, steal people from other teams temporarily, whatever it is. I mean, that's the only way, right? So that's one. The second thing is, the myth is, okay, so there's no bandwidth problem, so everything is like changa, right? Like it's all cool. Well, there are different kinds of problems, and some of those problems are probably even worse. I wouldn't say worse, are more challenging than the bandwidth problem. Like you would think that, oh, this is something that requires a very small change. Let's try this experiment out. Do you remember the number of experiments that we did in GoIBO and how we used to just flight them like overnight? That's just not possible, feasible, implementable in a large company. Right? You got to make sure, like, especially let's take Microsoft as an example. We pride ourselves in being one of the most privacy and compliant, data compliant infrastructure platform in the world. Like you can take any standard across the world and you will basically see Microsoft compliant with that. Right? So data residency standards, privacy standards, you got to pass like a whole bunch of reviews to actually even be able to flight something out. You can do anything you want within the company. Like you can dog food a lot of stuff, but then anything that goes beyond, you got to get them past so many gates, and for a good reason. It's not that it's their like wasteful expenditure. It's for good reason. I mean, there's enough and more challenges in internationalization. I remember my days in SQL Server. Adding a single radio button in a dialogue would take like a few months. Why? You would think that, I mean, there's no privacy thing there. There's no compliance thing there. But then imagine this has got to also pass through internationalization. It's got to go through Cantonese. It's got to go through Japanese. It's got to go through right to left Arabic. And if any of these things break, you're in trouble. Right? So the problem just shifts. So you say that, oh, you got a lot of testing people who can test it, but the number of things to test multiplies exponentially too. You cannot get like a PM and a dev just sit together and hash out the testing and then ship. So I think it's just the problem shifts from one to another, all for good reason. I mean, you be there in large companies for a few months or years. Initially, you will feel this whole, man, it takes so much to move stuff, but then you realize that there's a reason. The number of hundreds of millions of users using it, and for so critical reasons, you don't want somebody in a security company failing a mailbox or something like that. I mean, you just, like, you're gone. Right? So I think the challenges and problems just shift. It's not that when things become bigger and it becomes rosier. I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. I think the scale and the magnitude at which you can impact is massive. And one of the things which, I took from this portion of our conversation, Molly, is it's been like more than 10 years of me into this space, working across multiple products. But one thing which still remains a big challenge out there for startups is MVP. And I think everyone tries to go to the best version of MVP, but I think irrespective of which organization you are, still a lot of scrappy work is okay if you are able to go to your users in the fastest time possible, test it out, and then maybe build out, go for fundraising or your angel investments, or even your first 100 consumers, but take out your product, don't held it back. And for us, like in bigger organizations, it is about getting leadership buy-in, and maybe for startups out there, it is like getting your first 100 consumers and building. Awesome. Molly, like, what is that one biggest challenge that you would have faced while building products? And I want to relate and correlate it to the founders and aspiring founders listening out there on when they are building products, how they can learn from your challenge and maybe learnings or solutions that you would have used against that challenge.
So, you want a specific example from my journey or in general, generic you're asking?
Like your journey would be helpful.
Okay, cool. So when we were doing, so essentially this whole thing of every challenge being very dependent on which problem you are trying to solve is very prevalent, right? And I'll explain this with an example. When we were doing travel news, we were trying to build a SaaS e-commerce system for aviation, right? We thought, like, hey, I got experience in GoIBO, Stazilla, we know the travel marketplace, Ixigo is a partner, let's go just do it, right? But when you step in, like, out of your OTA shoes and into an aviation shoes, like into an airline office, right? You will realize that the amount of selective tech comfort is huge. These guys can grok turbines and engines and fuel mechanics and all that beautifully well, like scheduling challenges and all that. But then you go and tell them like, oh, you can tweak your e-commerce flow to do this and you'll get more tickets and all that. They're like, no, I don't touch anything that's not broken, right? So you can try and explain a lot of this stuff. So it's what looks like a problem to a founder may or may not be a problem to the real consumer, right? And making them understand that it is a problem is a huge thing, because it is a problem. It's just that it's outside of their lens. For them, making sure for an airline like SpiceJet or Akasa or whatever, or like Bamboo in Vietnam, getting their planes carry people from point X to point Y on time with all of the logistical challenges and operational frameworks is hard enough. So they do not have bandwidth. Like we had to go and explain to them that, dudes, look, you actually have this problem, but it is being solved extremely suboptimally by like 100-member army writing custom code. If you use a product, if you use a SaaS code product, you will be able to get 3 people in your company be able to do this by yourself. And you can do things hugely differently, right? An example, we were lucky to have that example. I mean, probably one of the few times when I'll probably say lucky and COVID in the same sentence. When COVID happened, if you remember the number of DGCA notices that came out on, from this date onwards, this route can have meals, but no liquid food. You can serve coffee on this route, but you cannot serve this in some other thing. And there's so many of these things came in. You got to do boarding passes in a certain way. You got to collect names and addresses of passengers because we want to send them COVID notices if their flight had. Custom code would have just failed right there. So we had a SaaS aviation product. So everything that DGCA said, the next day we could ship it. And the airline was like, whoa, now we get it. Right? So the thing is, the challenge that becomes over here is, one, what you think is like a huge problem may not be that big a problem for your customer. 2, it may even be a problem, but it's outside of their lens. So you got to do that work to get that into their lens to basically get them to solve it. Because we as startup founders get super excited into like, you can do this, you can do this, you can like make 10x, whatever, all of that goodness, right? But then getting the customer to see the value of it, bringing the problem into their lens is a huge challenge. And then I've seen this multiple places, but this is the most recent one. And unless you actually get the customer to see it, not going to happen.
Like bang on, Polly. Like a lot of times when I meet people and they tell me this is my startup or this is what I'm building in, and my first question to them is, why are you building this? What is the problem? And they are not able to in the first 5 minutes explain. So probably they are trying to solve or build solution for a problem which does not exist, or which probably exists but for my own self, and I want to relate it to those millions of people out there. So such a great learning. One thing which you started with, that you learned product management because of the community and people who know you, they know you about your dosa meetups that you host. And I also strongly believe in the power of networking. And to our founders and aspiring founders and every product owner out there, like if you want to quickly talk about why dosa meetups, what came to your mind and the kind of learnings or how it is helping you in your journey overall?
Sure. 2 things, right? I mean, one, network for the sake of meeting and knowing people genuinely. Do not network for the sake of networking. That's 1. 2, food is a fantastic icebreaker to do exactly that. You go sit down with somebody for breakfast with the dosa, steaming hot dosa in front of you in a comfortable situation, in a scenario. People tend to open up. People talk. People know that you're not really talking about, why is Mauli calling me? He's got something to ask of me or something like that. Like, food typically breaks that barrier down significantly. Lunch is too elaborate. dinner is unmakeable by a lot of people. Breakfast hits the spot for me. And I'm a big fan of dosa, and I being in Bangalore, I think that just works. So I've met people, so many people, like 50, 60 people over the course of like 6, 7 years that I've been doing this. It just made me meet so many interesting people and know about them and what they do, and just made some good friends, right? So it's a good thing to do.
Phenomenal, Molly, and I look forward to your Dosa meetup next time I'm in Bangalore. And once again, Molly, thank you so much for sparing your Saturday evening for us, for the community, and giving us so much valuable insights.